And we are live. This is the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast. My name is Sheldon Alexander. Thank you for tuning in to this. Again, on another day, we are talking basketball. Today we're talking Canada basketball. Hopefully you enjoyed our live hangout in which we both, as a family, as a crew, as a team, enjoyed Canada winning 103-93 over Puerto Rico in their last pre-Olympic just tournament exhibition game. And now we're here to wrap it all up. 103-93. This is a Canada Hoops Daily Podcast. My name is Sheldon Alexander. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast on your feed, on the Canada Hoops Daily audio feed, which you can find on Apple and on Spotify, please do us a favor. Just like, share, rate, review, all that fun stuff. That's how you support the pod. And of course, the video portion of the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast, you can find that as well under the Sheldon Alexander YouTube page. Just go to YouTube, type in Sheldon Alexander, and you will be sent to all of our Canada Hoops Daily content. That's where you'll be able to find it. You know, that's where we are. So hopefully you can enjoy. And once you get there too, to the YouTube page, make sure you do all that fun stuff. Subscribe to the feed, bless the video with the like. We appreciate that because this is where we'll be recapping this summer of basketball that we have upcoming for Team Canada on both the men's and women's side. We'll be talking a lot of basketball this summer. And the reason why is because we've got so much to discuss, like what we saw today, a 103-93 victory in the final tune-up before the Olympics begin for the men's team. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping off the front end. I mentioned the YouTube channel, Sheldon Alexander. That's where you can find the video portion of these podcasts, but also we've been doing live hangouts, meaning when the games are on, join the feed, send in your comments and questions. We can watch the game together. Today was pretty funny. You know, you had people chiming in, trying to find out where to find the game. We're able to help out that way. People were trying to find out the score because, you know, there were some gambling websites that had the wrong score up. Obviously, there's people gambling. They want to know what the score is, what the lines are in terms of people's scoring numbers, all that fun stuff. But I was able to give those answers because you're joining into the live chat, but also live commentary while the game's going on. We can discuss what's going on with a different vibe, different feel. Just have a little fun watching Canada basketball this summer. So we'll be doing these live hangouts during the Canada games, during the men's and women's Canada games, and possibly as well during the men's U.S. games. Men's U.S. games. We're trying to figure out, just depending on the schedule for all these things, trying to make all these things work at the same time. But again, you can find those live hangouts on YouTube on the Sheldon Alexander YouTube page. That's where you find all the Canada Hoops Daily content. Canada Hoops Daily video content is there. The audio content, same place where you're listening right now, Apple and on Spotify. This is a recap of Canada's game, and Dillon Brooks leading the way for Team Canada with 21 points. Also, if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, hey, this looks a little different than we're used to. I mentioned on the other pod, yeah, the office / studio is a little bit under construction right now. As if you're familiar with what's gone on in Toronto this week, yeah, there's some flooding going on. And so, yeah, we're adjusting on the fly, but here we are. We get things done because that's what we do, much like what Team Canada does. How's that for a segue? Big time game from Dillon Brooks, leading the way, 21 points, 103-93, Canada wins. And, you know, this game was about Canada's depth. You heard me talk about that on the last pod, about how important Canada's depth was because it provides depth defensively. Jordi Fernandez's style of play. He wants to pressure the ball. He wants full court pressure, and he demands defense. But now with the depth added to this team, it allows Shea to play at a higher level defensively as well, because he doesn't have to worry about carrying the scoring burden all on his own, which is very apparent in this game. So we'll get to that. We'll figure all that out. We'll discuss, as mentioned, Dillon Brooks leading the way in this one with 21 points. Trey Lyles with uh, 15 points. Nikhil Alexander Walker also at 15. Shea and RJ with 14 points apiece. And Canada finishes up their exhibition with a 2-1 record, getting ready to face off against Greece on Saturday to open up Olympic action. Giannis, Greece, let's go. Of course, one of the biggest questions heading into today's game, though, was about Jamal Murray, because Jamal Murray, he got a little bit of run during the Canada game against the US, but after that, didn't really play much. And, I caution people a lot, because we consume media and all these platforms. There's people creating content every day, myself included, right? So I'm not knocking it. But what I will say is, a lot of the chatter is always based in like fear and panic and all these things. And so all the talk, you had people worried about, wait a second, how come Jamal Murray hasn't played yet? How come he hasn't played yet? Does this mean he might not play in the Olympics? And we talked about it last pod, and it was like, just relax. I'm sure he's there, right? We see him on the bench. I'm sure that they're just not going to play him a bunch of minutes in pre-exhibition games or pre-Olympic games where, we've talked about the fact of his contract. And we know that there was rumors, reports that he was about to sign a contract in right around like the draft. And then that story kind of went away. And then now you're seeing him not really play so much back and forth during this pre-Olympic times. And I just think it's Team Canada being delicate with his minutes. If we have Jamal Murray for X amount of minutes, we're going to save those minutes for the big time games when we need them in the Olympics, not in pre-Olympic friendlies against France and against Puerto Rico. So Jamal Murray suited up in this game and played 7.5 minutes. And I really genuinely think a bunch of that was just, okay, let him go out there, let him run around, but then also like just to quiet some of the outside noise. And it's like, relax, he's here, he's fine, he's going to play, everything's all good. So that was the first thing to put to rest. I think it was cool to see him in the lineup, but he didn't start. So then now the narrative of all the panicked people shifts from, oh no, he didn't play to, wait, but how come he didn't start? It's like we just can't focus on the positives, right? We always got to shift to like what the next negative is. It's just so crazy. But anyways, Canada started Shea, Lou Dort, RJ Barrett, Dillon Brooks, Dwight Powell in this one against Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico is a solid team, right? So this is another great team to play against heading into the Olympics, because it's a team that historically does pretty well in Olympic and, international fare. They also, you saw the videos of Jose Alvarado, who obviously we know from the New Orleans Pelicans, and he's the leader of this team. Saw how emotional he was after getting the team to qualify for the Olympics. So this was a good, solid matchup for Canada, right? A good, solid matchup that you could measure up against heading into the tournament. Not as good as France, but still a solid team, right? So Canada starts off this game, and, I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm countering this from watching the US's game yesterday, which if you didn't watch the US game against South Sudan yesterday, you missed out, because that was a great game. Maybe I'll talk about that a bit at the end of this pod. But the biggest thing I'll say is we talked about watching Team USA and how stagnant the offense was, right? And how you can't really play an NBA style of play where one guy has the ball, the other guys are kind of just standing around watching. You can't play like that in international play. And Team USA was plagued by that against South Sudan. Whereas you watch Canada, and right off the bat, I mean, Dillon Brooks and RJ Barrett are getting buckets, and they're just going to the cup, but it's all off of some action ran by their team. And Jordi Fernandez has these guys not standing around and watching on offense. The ball is moving. Players are moving. You're setting screens. You're cutting. Like, there's just so much going on within Canada's offense that early on, the first 12 points scored by Dillon Brooks and RJ Barrett. Each of them had 6 points. Their points coming off the dribble, and it's just getting them moving, getting them, involved early. And that also means that Shea, there's not that much pressure on Shea. We saw last year in the World Cup where a lot of times if the offense broke down, you just stand around and watch Shea, and it's like, Shea, bail us out. And he did, right? They won a bronze medal. And yeah, there's going to be times where that happens in winning time or, just when things really get tight. Cool. But overall, from Canada, we've seen such fluid, great offensive sets to get buckets, and that eases the pressure off someone like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And in this game, I mean, first quarter, game's tied at 23. Shea has 0 points, and it just didn't matter, right? Because Canada was able to get buckets from other guys. And even when the starters went to the bench, Trey Lyles comes in, and Trey Lyles has proved to be really, really a great addition for this team. He had 7 points in that first quarter. And, the big thing there is you're seeing him hit threes. You're seeing him, play inside and work in the post. He's just such a skilled player. And obviously, Jordi Fernandez would be familiar with them as being the assistant coach on the Kings, where Trey Lyles plays. But now Jordy moving on, of course, he's still familiar with what Trey Lyles is able to do, and a welcome addition from a guy who, Canada could have used him last summer, right, in the World Cup, but they're super happy to have him now heading into the Olympics, and it's a great, great addition. You saw so much of his game and what he's able to do, and he started off the first quarter hot, kept it going into the second. He made his first 5 shots from the floor, and you saw a little bit of everything. You got some dunks, you got some threes, 12 points he had early on in that first half. And I just thought that was a welcome sign from Team Canada because, again, you're getting the depth of this team. So much so that I mentioned Jamal Murray. He got out there and, 7 minutes of play. Cool. I think he was more so out there getting a sweat, get some shots up. He missed a few threes. I think it was just good to see him out there. He had a couple of assists. I think that was good. Just get him out there, get him running in a bunch of these sets, get him in the flow where he's able to knock down some of those threes. You're not really worried about him missing shots. You know that he'll hit them when you need them. And I think the most important part was just to kind of quiet some of the noise that was, plaguing this team on social media, which again is not real, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's there, he's going to play. And then, I'm assuming he's going to start when the Olympics are next, when we see them line up against Giannis and Greece next Saturday, and everything will be fine. I just think this was a good opportunity to have a sigh of relief. People can relax. People can be just happy that you're getting to see Jamal Murray play on Canada's Olympic team. And, the fact that he came off the bench and played after missing the last exhibition game when really he played against USA. So I don't even know what the big deal was, why people were so panicked, but, good to see him out there. And the bigger part, and this is what I mean, instead of focusing on so much of the negative aspects of this, how about the fact that we've seen Canada play so well against pretty solid teams without Jamal Murray, right? Like, they won a game against France, one of the top teams in the world, right? They won a game without him. And then in this game against Puerto Rico, another solid team, you didn't get much from Jamal Murray and you didn't really need him. To me, those are positive signs to look at as you build towards the Olympics, and you have him there. So when you need him, he's ready to go. And I think the most important part is having him ready to go. And we're seeing that. But adding to that, yeah, Jamal Murray played 7 minutes. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander played a bunch. But he didn't score his first basket in this game until a 3-pointer with like a minute left in the first half. And part of that, yeah, Shea missed some shots early. Nobody's going to be worried about that. But if you watch the level of defense that Shea was playing against Jose Alvarado throughout the whole game, it just leads further and further into what I've been talking about throughout this whole process in terms of the way that Canada wants to play and having the added depth of adding Andrew Nemhard, Trey Lyles to your rotation. Those are extra guys that take the burden off of Shea. And now Shea can use a bunch of his energy on both ends of the floor. And that's not to say that he wasn't playing defense before, but you can like ramp that up a little more. And when you watch Canada playing their full court press and Shea is guarding Jose Alvarado all the way up the floor, you're going to wear him down, right? Like the burden that Jose Alvarado carries for Puerto Rico is what things used to be like for Shea. Do you know what I mean? Not to the same level, because obviously Canada has much better players in Puerto Rico. But what I'm saying is having to carry the burden of you have to make and create the majority of the plays. You have to guard the other team's perimeter guys. Like Shea can now do that at a high level and not have to worry about trying to save some of his energy on reserve in the tank for crunch time. He can go all out and play defense on the other team's point guard, make life difficult for him and know that there's no problem because Canada was still up at the half, up by 6. Trey Lyles had a game high 13 on 5 of 6 shooting. Dillon Brooks with 11 points, RJ with 8 points. And that shows the depth of Team Canada. So yeah, whether it's Sunday night, whether it's Monday, when you turn on your sports, talk radio or whatever it is, and everyone's talking about, oh, well, Jamal Murray played, and what should we feel about that? I urge people to look at the other side. Like, yes, it's great Jamal Murray is there. I wasn't worried if he was going to play or not anyways, because he was there in uniform. We saw that. But focus on the pluses of seeing the depth that Canada has. That is a true strength. And if they are to medal, it will be because of the depth of their team. Again, if you were to tell people, even the people that you'll hear talking about this game tomorrow, Trey Lyles, game high, 13 points at the half, right? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander had 3 points, and you're up against Puerto Rico. Solid showing, right? You're up 6. And again, 6 points is not crazy. 6 points is not, massive. But I think, what you see from Canada is focusing on their defensive strategy, the way that they want to play, the way that they want to be able to execute and play at a high level on the defensive end. And that to me is the key. If you're going to watch what, if you're going to learn and kind of try to get a glimpse into what you have to look forward to coming next Saturday and beyond as the Olympics draw near, right? Because I think the biggest part is understanding the defensive energy and intensity that Canada wants to play and why they want to play that way, because defense wins, right? No matter what level of basketball, defense wins. We don't talk about it in that sense, but that's really what it is. And Jordi Fernandez has demanded a level of defense and a commitment on the defensive end from everybody. So if you're seeing Shea guard full court, everybody else has to play defense too. That's just the way it is, right? So as mentioned, that first half, Canada forcing 10 turnovers, leading to 12 points, 14 points on the fast break. That's the style of play. The ball is, you're getting easy buckets on offense. None of that stand around. Let's all watch Shea. They're getting easy buckets. So I watched that first half and I'm thinking, hey, Canada looks all right. Canada looks pretty good. These are all positive signs. Happy to see it all. Cool. But it's still like a 6-point game, right? Kind of close. And then halftime comes. And all of a sudden the third quarter opens. And Canada's defensive intensity just kicked it up yet another notch that I didn't know was possible. And I say that because, first off, full court press intensified. And Canada's able to just get so many steals, and they just overwhelmed Puerto Rico in that third quarter. They started off the third quarter on a 15-0 run. And those of you who've been following Canada basketball the last couple years, if you watched the World Cup last summer, you know that this was a theme as well, where There were a couple games where it'd be close, and then halftime, Canada would come out the gates and the intensity was just ratcheted up. Like, I don't know what Jordi Fernandez's speeches are like at halftime. You get a little bit of a glimpse as they play the audio, during some of the timeouts. But whatever my guy said at halftime, Canada came out in the second half and they just dominated. Their starters, again, SGA had 6 points, Dillon Brooks had 5 points, RJ had 5 points, a 15-0 run to start that third quarter. And they were just flying around on the defensive end. And once you do that, you wear down the other team. And I emphasize this because not everything is identifiable by a stat. Sometimes you just watch the game and you see the difference, right? So when you're full court pressing like that, you're having the offensive player struggle to bring the ball up the floor, but now when he does, there's less time on the shot clock. And now your offense is out of sync, and you saw a lot of possessions where Puerto Rico just wasn't even able to get into their sets, and it would just lead to bad turnovers where they're tossing the ball out of bounds or someone shooting the ball, forcing it up with like late in the shot clock. And those are possessions that don't end in a steal per se, but Canada's defensive pressure completely throwing off Puerto Rico. And the third quarter is when this whole game changed. Again, a 15-0 run. Like Shea, RJ, Dillon Brooks, they got it started. But even when Nikhil and the bench came on, Nikhil had 7 points in that quarter, and Canada upped their lead. That was a 6-point lead at half. And all of a sudden, was it a 6-point lead at half? Yeah. And all of a sudden, at the end of three quarters, they're up by 14. Like, just what a complete change of events. You were already winning, but it's like the pressure that Jordi puts on these guys to demand a level of expectation of how you're expected to play. You saw it in this game. And I'm sitting here watching and thinking, this team looks like they're firing on all cylinders, right? Like, Puerto Rico might not be one of the best teams in, this tournament, but they're still a solid team that, through different iterations of whether it's Canada or the US, everyone will famously remember the Carlos Arroyo, fanning the jersey as they beat the US in the Olympics, in what was that, 04? Like, people remember that. Puerto Rico's had good teams over the years, but I say that to emphasize the point that, you watch their team. This is a team that might have given Canada problems because their bigs are still used to being bigs, meaning they play a big man post game. So what you look at Rudy Gobert and you kind of wish maybe you should do a little of that. Puerto Rico's got some dudes that aren't as big as Gobert, but they bang down low and they got post games for days. But when you're Team Canada and now you're pressuring Alvarado and their other guards up the floor, you're not allowing them time to get into their sets and get the big guys proper post position. Everything is being rushed and they're completely out of sync. And Canada leading by 14 points after three, like, you're just seeing it where, okay, Shea's not really having a normal Shea night, and Jamal Murray's only played 7 minutes, and yet you're up by 14 in the third quarter. I'm watching that thinking these guys are ready. Jordi has these guys locked and loaded and ready for the Olympics. And it's a blessing to see if you followed Canada over the years and just, literally praying for times like this, right? To watch them play like this. And it's like, Canada, they're here. They are here. We're going into the Olympics with expectations, dominating teams that, we're thinking could be close games, or it's like, no. We should dominate these games, and they are. And it's built through this program, which they demanded that you show up for a full cycle of 3 years or 4 years, and you show up to training camps in the summer and you play the system and you see the level of commitment from the other NBA guys. And now here we are. You're blowing out Puerto Rico after 3. And I'll give Puerto Rico some credit here because I thought the game was over. But, the heart and soul of their team, Jose Alvarado, He started knocking down some threes, back-to-back threes at one point. He had 4 threes overall at that point in the game, and Canada's lead was over 20 and all of a sudden cut to 5, right? And you might be thinking, okay, well, how did that happen? And Canada, they might have taken their foot off the gas a little. But again, this is what makes these friendlies so important because they didn't call timeout. Jordy let them work their way out of it. And that's so important as well because you're getting tested in so many different scenarios that you might face when a medal's on the line or when a knockout game's on the line, and seeing how your team's going to play. How are they going to react? And you get another example again of Shea just being the vet, just G that he is, where in this instance, Canada's struggling on offense. What does Shea do? Puts his head down, gets to the free throw line, puts some points up on the board, stops the run. And also Canada's depth and defense. Because a guy's name that you haven't heard much so far through this, a pre-Olympic warm-up is Lou Dort. And in this game, Lou Dort has struggled, or in this, series of games, the previous 2 games that Canada's played, Lou Dort struggled with his shooting, but knocks down a couple threes here where Canada needed it to extend the lead. And of course, he follows the lead of Shea, where, they're OKC pals, of course. But once those guys, think about being Jose Alvarado. You got Shea that's taking this matchup personally, guarding you. And then if it's not Shea, it's going to be Dillon Brooks or it's going to be Lou Dort. That's Jordy Fernandez is playing to the strength of his team. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And the interesting part, you saw Canada play to their best. You saw them play, below expectations. And then it's about how are you going to react? And when the depth is able to come through, you're able to switch things up because you can come to your bench unit with Nembhard, with Lou Dort, with Nikhil, and have those guys turn it up on defense, switch the flow of the game up again. And then Shea does his thing because he's just so cool and calm, getting the free throws, diming when you need a dime, whatever you need, Shea's got you covered to close out the game. After a slow start, remember, his first points were with a minute left in the first half. Finishes the game with 14 points, 6 assists, 2 steals. As mentioned, Canada closing this one out in a game where they led by 20 plus. That lead got erased. They end up winning by 10. Dillon Brooks leading the way with 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting. Trey Lyles and Nikhil Alexander-Walker both with 15 points each. That just points to the depth of this team. And then Shea, as mentioned, with 14, RJ with 14 in 23 minutes. The depth of this team, everyone just scoring within the flow and the flow of the game. It's just a beautiful thing to see. I am super excited to see Canada play Greece on Saturday. And, it's going to be Giannis just going crazy. But if you look towards that, right, you think, okay, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo, cool. We got Dillon Brooks to throw at you. We got Lou Dort to throw at you. There's enough guys to throw at Giannis to at least make him work for everything. And you hope that your depth, again, will be enough to slow down whatever Giannis heroic performances Giannis is going to put up in this Olympic Games. But now the games start for real. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm super, super, super excited from everything that I've seen from Canada so far because of their coach has them prepared. Their coach has them, seems like they're prepared on the court, but they're prepared mentally as well to handle different scenarios. You see them running offense. There's not a lot of standing around and staring at guys dribbling the ball. Everyone's moving. Everyone's contributing. Guys have their role. Whether it's Kelly coming off the bench with NAW and Nembhard, and then of course the biggest question people were worried about was Jamal Murray and the names, and you hear people talk about basketball that might not normally talk about basketball or might not watch as much basketball as us watching a live stream of games in the middle of the summer. But I say that to point out the fact that so much talk is going to be about Jamal Murray, and I get it. Jamal Murray is incredible. You are super excited to have Jamal Murray rock out for Team Canada. But the beauty of what we're seeing is the overall depth of the program and how this coach is perfectly using that depth and has gotten them all these NBA dudes to buy into, we're going to play full out defense and we're going to wear other teams down. That's incredible. That's going to be fun to see. And I can't wait for this game on Saturday against Greece, as Canada is here. We've waited for this for so long. The Olympics are about to kick off, and Canada has a real shot at a medal. This is incredible. Can't wait for that. The final tune-up game is over, 103-93. Canada wins. Dillon Brooks leading the way with 21 points on 8 of 12 shooting. Jamal Murray played. He got in the game. Everyone can relax now and calm down. We saw him play. He'll be ready for the Olympics. Let's go. Shea in this game, like, there were moments where it looked like Shea was just like, just in a different gear, like he wasn't going full on 100 miles an hour Shea, but he was doing enough on offense, scoring when Canada needed to, but on defense. And that's the beautiful part. Like, imagine saying that to Luka, right? I'm just picking other top dudes that you'll see. I don't know. I'm super excited to see what Canada has to do in this, or what they're capable of. And then the flip side of this was the reality of the situation at Canada's core, right? Shea, Dillon Brooks, RJ, Lou Dort, Nikhil. Then add in the new guys they brought in. But you have a core of guys that have been practicing together and have bought into Jordi Fernandez's system, which starts at the defensive end, playing with your speed, using your athleticism. I bring that up because if you watch what South Sudan did to the U.S. yesterday, in a game in which South Sudan were 43.5-point underdogs to Team USA, and they lose by 1 point in a game that they probably should have won. Why? Because they used their athleticism. They ran up and down the floor, and the U.S. guys, I mean, you got to remember, it's still a team that just started playing together, right? And they have to play Steph. They had to play LeBron heavy minutes because those guys were the ones that when the chips were down, who else was going to bring you back? And a heroic performance from Steph and LeBron to erase a 14-point deficit in that third quarter to bring the U.S. all the way back. But the reality is those guys can't play defense, right? Or not at the level that Canada is playing, right? So now the U.S. is going to need their other dudes who's going to be alongside LeBron and Steph in those crunch time minutes. The U.S. hasn't figured that out yet. And yeah, they're still out here running Joel Embiid. So listen, I'm not saying that to tell you anything other than the fact that, of course, the U.S. are still the overwhelming favorites. I am going to say, though, that everything is not perfect. You almost lose to South Sudan. Just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So you're telling me there's a chance. I can't believe we're here. We're here. This is awesome. We'll be back throughout the week. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Canada Hoops Daily Podcast as we wrapped up Canada's pre-Olympic tournament where, they're able to play a couple games. They lost to the U.S., but they bounced back with a couple W's against France and Puerto Rico. And if we're being honest, they played in that game against the U.S., but it's not like Shea played heavy minutes in that game. It's not like we know Jamal Murray didn't play heavy minutes in that game. You could tell it's not like Canada was going all out in that game for the whole game or for the majority of the game even, right? So I find that interesting. I find that super interesting. But you look at where Canada played a lot more of their rotation against Puerto Rico and against France. And what I mean by their rotation in terms of how you would play your starters minutes, then the bench coming in, then the starters coming in to close out, like a rotation that looks more like what you anticipate will happen in the Olympics, right? Minus the Jamal Murray side of it. And Canada looks legit. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. And if you are, make sure you subscribe to the Canada Hoops Daily feed, which you can find audio versions of the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Also, if you want to see the video content, make sure you go to the Sheldon Alexander YouTube page. That's where you can find us doing this podcast, recapping all the games, or you can join us during the games as well, as we will be doing watch alongs, which we're calling live hangouts, where we will enjoy chatting up. We'll have different people jump on the stream as well, as we will watch Canada make history together, as Canada's women's and men's team both have a chance to medal at the Olympics. What a time to be alive indeed. We will be here to cover it all. So make sure you're liking and subscribing to the Sheldon Alexander feed on YouTube. In fact, if you're listening to this right now, why not just bless us with a like right now? Help us out. It's how you support the vibe, the movement that is the Canada Hoops Daily podcast, because we're here keeping this as a record, that'll last forever, so that we'll always have these memories together. That was the beauty of starting this pod a long time ago with Wrap It Up, the year the Raptors won the NBA championship, was just personally myself being able to go back and have the vibes there, see what we were feeling in the moments that we'll never forget. It's documented, it's a lot of fun. And we're going to do that again here, as Canada has a chance to make a run to the podium. Men's and women's will be here. Let me know in the comments, what content you want to see more of. If you're interested in the watch alongs, maybe some people you like to see jump on the stream to join me during the watch alongs. Also, how often you're interested in podcasts, recapping every game. Because listen, the game times for the Olympics, I know it can be a little odd, right? With different times, as maybe I'll give people a reminder of just when some of these games will be. And Canada starts off, as mentioned, on Saturday. That game's at 3 p.m. Eastern time, right? That will be Canada's first game on Saturday. Then on July 30th against Australia, that's at 7:30 a.m. And then Canada versus Spain, their third and final game of the Olympic round robin, of the group stage, I should say. Canada versus Spain, August 2nd, 11:15 a.m. So lots going on for sure. We'll be here to break that all down. And that's the reason for these live streams as well, right? Game times are at different moments. It's not necessarily, hey, we'll all be out at a bar to watch it. So why not watch it together on a live stream with your friends, and let's hang out and do it together. Let me know what you guys think. Send in your comments and questions as always. We appreciate it, because this is your show. I'm just the one with the microphone, giving the platform for everyone else to join along and have fun as well. As I always say, and it's the truer words have never been spoken. Really did used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the Canada Hoops Daily podcast. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.